Fortinet.
Fortinet presents Securing Your Digital Journey in association with CNBC-TV18.
Hello and welcome to CNBC-TV18 and Fortinet present Securing Your Digital Journey Anywhere and Everywhere. I'm your host Gautam Srinivasan, and the theme of our conversation today is protecting the modern workforce. The future lies in zero trust. Indeed, as the hybrid workplace of today and tomorrow enables employees to work from anywhere, anytime, securing people and assets outside of the office environment without impeding productivity has become paramount. It's here that a zero trust framework, which eliminates implicit trust and continuously validates every stage of a digital interaction, comes into the spotlight, especially as more and more workloads migrate to the cloud. So, to gain a deeper access to the conversation shaping security and zero trust at India's top enterprises, I'm joined by three leaders in the industry. Please welcome Nayan Desai, CIO at global business process management company WNS Global Services; Rishi Rajpal, Vice President for Global Security at the world leader in digital customer experience Concentrix; and Vishak Raman, Vice President of Sales for India, SAARC, and Southeast Asia at the global leader in cybersecurity solutions and services firm Fortinet. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Indeed, security is a big focus area these days. And let me lay out the data landscape. And Vishak, maybe we'll get you to comment on this. Over 6.74 lakh cybersecurity incidents were reported in India in 2022 till June. Now, as per FortiGuard Labs Global Threat Landscape Report, 10,666 ransomware variants across platforms have been identified compared to just 5,400 in the previous 6-month period. Now, that's a nearly 2x growth in variance in half a year. So I want to understand from you, Vishak, first, what are the implications for the value chain of businesses who are undergoing rapid digital transformation if they are unable to secure mission critical data?
Yeah, thanks, Gautam. A perfect storm is brewing out there. And as you can see, every business is embracing digital initiatives faster than ever before. And pandemic has actually accelerated that. And security practitioners have to ensure access across their devices, bring your own device anytime from any application. And their business shifts have actually pushed them to move away from their private data center, embracing their workloads, and into cloud and beyond. And they're responsible for maintaining instant availability of their services. And it has to be available for 24/7. So really the question is, how do you do the trade-off between availability and security and enabling the business to run 24/7? And that's what the defenders are actually challenged with. And to commensurate with that, when we looked at the FortiGuard's threat landscape report, which got published in August this month, we saw some very interesting trend. Over the last 6 months, as you said, 2x growth in ransomware. We also saw an interesting trend towards surge of vipers. That means malwares which are designed to delete data when it actually explodes into their computers. And the way these vipers have actually proliferated is quite interesting. And they've proliferated across operational technologies. They are getting into air-gap environments. And so it's getting onto an uneven battle between the defenders and as well as the hackers out there. And we saw a very interesting rise of Log4j, which is actually a threat, what we found out in August last year per se, but still that exploitation is actually continuing, right? So it's a perfect storm which is brewing out there, and it's uneven in terms of balancing act of protecting their services, availability of those services, and defending their assets against these relentless targeted hackers.
Indeed, the time is now to even the game. As Vishak mentioned, that a perfect storm is brewing. We are seeing rise in ransomware, rise in vipers, and this is the time to secure your enterprise environment, especially as a lot of the work has gone remote. So as we look to balance the scale, the question then is to understand what should be the new posture. So Rishi, let me bring you in. The pandemic, as I mentioned, it brought about hybrid or remote work into the mainstream. And in this world where anytime, anywhere access to information is necessary for employees on any device, it also opens up many channels of threat actors to gain access. Now, considering that India is the sixth most breached country across the globe, what should be the new posture for cybersecurity in organizations in this network world?
Okay, so let me start with a simple statement that security needs to transparently move irrespective of the user location. Now, it is easier said than done because large amount of workforces were working in bricks and mortars and now they are working remote. Now, you really have to invest in technology significantly to ensure that security remains the same irrespective of the location, and the trust of the device is continuously verified before it is allowed access to an application or a resource on a company network. Now, that's a technology part of it, which is kind of solved with so many solutions. And there is a human part of it, because when you are home, social engineering becomes an exponential threat. So I think continuously education of users on the latest threat landscape and how a human element can be exploited also has a real big importance to play in the overall threat landscape.
Absolutely. And we'll be exploring that in detail in this conversation. But let's also look at the human element in this entire infrastructure, because for a lot of the folks, that's where potentially the weak point could be. So, Nayan, let me bring you into the conversation for that, because research shows that threats from inside the company, that accounts for about 43% of data breaches. And the very people who are closest to the data or other corporate assets can often be a weak link in a company's cybersecurity program. So I want to understand from you, how can companies address the human element, which is the weakest link in the network, and in a sense, improve their risk culture?
Thanks, Gautam. And human factor of cybersecurity have been the root cause of the biggest data breach in recent history. And you stated the statistics. The human element is less about deliberate malicious actions, but judgmental error made by simple people who fails to apply basic controls such as strong password or who fall prey to seemingly legitimate emails and web clicks, leading to the credential theft or remote code execution on their endpoint. It is also important to note that an individual knowledge or belief for the values or security conscious behavior will be difference between the protection and breach for any organization. Security culture baselining is an important step in security organization and individual. Organization can use the security culture maturity model to visualize their current level of cybersecurity culture and plan the step required to progress from one level to another, or identify target groups that require special attention and guidance. We must go beyond education, though by periodically conducting stimulated phishing attacks, they can pinpoint the most vulnerable users and single them out for education. This is the most important area if we could address to establish a human security index and find the weakest link in that chain.
Rishi, what does the zero trust model have to offer for CISOs looking to make their organizations more resilient to fuel growth and innovation?
So basically, zero trust is not a technology or a product. So let me clarify that first. It is really a framework or a model which organizations have to deploy to really have security at defense in depth at various layers. So I would say it's very disheartening to say that we don't trust our employees, vendors. But if you really look at it in true sense, trust is the only thing which is exploited by adversaries. So basically, zero trust means that you are continuously evaluating the posture of your device, identities to make sure your network is not impacted or exploited by adversaries. So that will be my take on it.
All right, let's take that conversation forward to understand the design principles around zero trust. So, Vishak, let me bring you into the conversation. According to a survey from Fortinet, although many organizations they have a vision for zero trust, that vision isn't necessarily being translated into the solutions they're able to put in place. So, according to you, what are the design principles of creating a mature zero trust model for any business? And how can Fortinet help organizations achieve this objective?
Zero trust is not a hardware or a software solution. It's an evolution. And it's not about just technology. It's all about people, process. But let me address from the root cause of what's the evolution of zero trust model. It all started with network segmentation, right? Where you break up your flat internal network into multiple segments, whether it's departments, device types, guests, and then you make sure that the malware which gets infected doesn't move laterally. So it all started with network segmentation. But today, as Forrester, who coined the zero trust framework, is as extended into an ecosystem. That means it covers your devices, your people, your networks, and even your workloads, your data, and how do you ensure you gain visibility and analytics. And also, it has added automation and orchestration part of it. So the zero trust principles are grant access based on privilege of least privilege, right? And evaluate every trust on a per transaction basis. So trust is not permanent, it's temporary, right? And you use verification of the users, you look at identity of the user, reinforce identification with multi-factor authentication. Does the user have the permission and access to the resource? And also, it goes again talking about verifying the device and its posture. That means whether the device is running the latest patch, whether it is running a device encryption or not. If the policies are not met, the access is not given. And trust is temporary, and you continuously evaluate your verification part of it. So if you look at it, these are the zero trust principles, what has been there in the marketplace for a very long time. And if you look at it, Fortinet actually built these layers of security into Fortinet zero trust access on endpoint access and control, device access via network access admission control, identity management, user application access control, and also with our SIM and analytics platform, we built a complete portfolio around devices, people, network, workloads, visibility and analytics, and automation and orchestration. So that sums up our framework into zero trust.
Fortinet presents Securing Your Digital Journey in association with CNBC-TV18.
Rishi, let me bring you in for this. This experience is the opposite of what most users expect when it comes to reinforcing organizational security. But zero trust actually makes it possible to enhance security without impacting productivity. So if you could share with us some use cases demonstrating the improved interplay between employees, customers, and partners due to zero trust, that'll help our viewers understand how things actually work.
Sure. So basically, as Vishak pointed out, right? So zero trust is just-in-time access, access to the right device, access to the right user, and access to the right resource. So this is kind of zero trust, right? So there are technologies available today. Traditionally, we've all worked on VPNs, which may not be an ideal working style, because what VPN is doing is it is providing layer 3, layer 4 access to your network, which means the user has much more access than we would like them to have. But with zero trust, you can really define, I really want to give this user access to this application at this time and from this device. So this is the concept of zero trust. And another aspect is continuously checking the posture, which means that, as Vishak said, that trust is like temporary, right? So when I logged on from a device, it was compliant and I got the access what I wanted. But because I was running 10-hour, 12-hour shift, after 6 hours, my device became non-compliant, because access should not be persistent, right? Because your posture is getting checked at periodic intervals or all the time, continuously. The moment you become non-compliant, you're not part of the network at all. So that's one of the use case which is really required with the hybrid workforce.
Nayan, let me bring you in also to understand, how the risk teams become more agile now, because monitoring is going to be a key aspect of it, especially as business infrastructure evolves. Organizations will likely need to adjust data encryption, security controls, and access levels and user profiles. So how important is monitoring zero trust processes continuously to long-term success and enabling risk teams to become more agile over time?
So maybe, Gautam, as Vishak and Rishi mentioned, enterprise have evolved over the years, and especially so in the light of the pandemic and remote workforce era. Traditionally, organization operated under the regime of castle and moat-based security, which included a high level of protection from cyber threat from the outside of the guarded wall, with focus on a defined perimeter with the use of firewall, IPS, network segregation, DMZs were possible. And people, process, tech operated within this defined perimeter, including to a great extent within the physical boundaries of the enterprise physical security layer of the organization under the supervisory control. Zero trust based architecture is no longer a hype, but a need for the digital enterprise. The important aspect to apply, and maybe I'm not going to go into the details of principle of zero trust model, we have enough covered on that aspect, but the important aspect is to apply the principle of least privilege to reduce the attack surface area and encapsulate organizational services, thereby effectively reducing the touch point, making them invisible to the bad actors.
All right. So if it has to be invisible, there's also a lot of silos which should be removed. So if you can expand on how can organizations promote cross-departmental collaboration and remove those silos to ensure security teams get the information they need to make zero trust architectures more successful. And we'll get your viewpoints. And also if you can share how your association with Fortinet helps you in this aspect.
Sure. So in terms of we all know, right, that zero trust is a complex initiative. There is a wide array of use cases supporting technology, and maybe Fortinet has some of the cases which we utilize over the last many years. Starting point and the strategy option. On the brighter side, one of the key to succeeding with the zero trust remains something companies arguably have the most control over, that is the collaboration across the organization. Communication typically across often siloed teams within and outside of the IT organization remains a challenge. But without the day-to-day operational collaboration required to ensure that the entire business is moving in the same direction, and zero trust becomes an uphill battle in that front. Business and operation, specifically the non-IT teams, may feel that security organization slows them down and ignore their concerns. Oftentimes, the reality is that security teams are redlined with keeping the wheels on, and zero trust can be described as changing the tires while the car is still moving.
Indeed. All right, let's bring it all together, Vishak. Is a best of breed a better strategy or a platform approach better for implementing zero trust across a hybrid framework? Since in the operational technology space, companies must secure IoT devices, clouds, and traditional IT systems, and doing so with multiple vendors makes it very hard to link the threat intelligence together to make sure that the policies are the same across everything.
Very pertinent question. And if you look at Gartner, came out in year 2022. They published why customers will move from a point products to actually a platform-based approach, because the benefits are immense. If you look at it, security has evolved with point product approach because we had point problems. So we ended up buying point products which they don't talk to each other, and the alerts and the console hopping, what customers were mired with, huge amount of alerts coming from these point products which they don't communicate. Right. So if you look at it, the platform-based approach brings it all together across 4 key pillars. When you really look at users and devices, when I say users, it means your endpoints. When I say devices, it includes your IT and OT devices. So that's an important pillar. And then when you look at your cloud, your cloud-based workloads, because people have really moved during the pandemic, lock, stock, barrel to cloud point of view. So that's the second pillar. The third one is networks. Networks are not going anywhere. It's a common denominator which connects all of these IT assets. And the fourth is application. So if you look at it, if you really want to have visibility and control across all of these 4 key pillars, you need to have a platform-based approach where these devices can be giving the visibility and control what the defenders like Rishi and Nayan spoke about, to give them the visibility and control across these 4 pillars. So a platform-based approach enables that interlink, and Gartner very clearly said that it's going to be a fabric approach where you need to have a fabric mesh which integrates these 4 pillars across your applications, your cloud, network, and users and devices per se. So a platform-based approach minimizes your alert fatigue, minimize the efforts what you require to do this console hopping. And you spoke about IT and OT integration, and we clearly saw the OT vulnerabilities on the rise. In our threat report, we saw as high as 72 zero-day vulnerabilities published, and out of them, 23 are OT. So it's a high time we choose a platform-based approach with an integrated, fabric approach to integrate and get all of these threat intelligence flowing back to your setup.
Absolutely. The objective is to balance the scale to improve the chances for the defenders. The thinking itself needs to shift from point products to a fabric-based ecosystem approach towards security. On that note, it's time to conclude our discussion titled Protecting the Modern Workforce. The future lies in zero trust as part of CNBC-TV18 and Fortinet present Securing Your Digital Journey Anywhere and Everywhere. I'd like to thank all the panelists for sharing their insights and lessons on the topic. And of course, thank you to our viewers for tuning in. Till next time, this is your host, Gautam Srinivasan, signing off. Have a great day.
Fortinet presents Securing Your Digital Journey in association with CNBC-TV18. Focus. Ideate, innovate, enable.